Welcome to another founder-to-founder interview from Gun.io, your source for hiring world-class tech talent. Today, Gun.io's CEO and co-founder Teja Yanamandra sits down with co-founder and CEO Kate O'Neill of Teaming.com, a site that helps users automate manager tasks and adapt their leadership styles to any situation. Okay, here's Teja.
So I think the first time you were on the pod, you were co-founder and not yet CEO of the company. That's true? Cool.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. How did that sort of transition happen? And I think this is your first sort of role as CEO.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on the role and how is it different from before versus co-founder? Like, yeah, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm less than a year into the CEO role, so this is newbie cool. Things that I've noticed. Well, so how it transpired, we are four co-founders. We all know each other from our previous company. And our CEO, our Teaming's former CEO was our CEO at our last company. And that was a, much bigger venture backed, it sold and did well and all that. And he was, I would say, a big tech company CEO, or at least bigger than we are now. And when we started Teaming, it was like, wow, only three of the four of us hadn't done startup as the first co-founder, right? My other co-founder, Steven, he was co-founder of our last company. So he's gone from 0 to 1, but none of the rest of us had. And so It has just been such a learning for us. And thankfully we've had Steven, kind of guide us through that 0 to 1 process. But our former CEO, was part-time. So two of us were full-time, two of us were part-time. And it got to the point where, he was also CEO of another company. He is CEO of another company. And when we went to go out and raise, our institutional round, which we just signed a term sheet this week,
Congrats.
Which is exciting. Thanks.
Yeah.
The advice was like, they don't want to give a part-time CEO money, or institutions don't want to give a part-time CEO money. So what's what makes sense for you all? And I think between Steven and I are full-time. So between the two of us, it was like, Steven's running the tech side, I'm running the go-to-market side. And we're both incredibly close to customers, but I think from telling the Teaming story, it just was like natural that it would be me. And yeah, I think getting to this point, it's such a learning experience. I mean, I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this. It's the most humbling experience. You realize how little you actually know. It's a very, very, very humbling experience. And so I've enjoyed it. But at some point, like, you also realize, like, you get to deal with all the crappy stuff, like all the problems. And you want that because you want to clear the path for everyone else to really focus on the things that need to get done. And that's something I didn't expect. I don't know. I just didn't expect that, I guess. And it wasn't the CEOs I've had before have done such an amazing job of that, I think, that I didn't realize that that's what they were doing, right? Dealing with a lot of problems. So yeah, that's probably the new, or the first, I think I'm 10 months in now. So, first 10 months would be the learnings. How about you? I mean, you're well into this path, but you're relatively, like, you guys were bootstrapped and then you raised not that long ago, right? So this job must have changed a lot for you too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, It's funny. My friends, like family and like partner would say it's not been a humbling experience for me. They often all make fun of me. They're like, don't CEO my life. And I'm like, okay, sorry. So I need to work in the opposite way for me. Because I'm like, cool, you're coming to me with a problem. Here's what you should do. I encourage you to do this. They're like, don't talk to me like that. I'm like, okay, sorry, my bad. That's like, you're just in that mode, like 10 hours a day. So that's how you tend to operate. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like when we were bootstrapped, I think maybe the biggest difference from today is like I really only had like one reality to manage. And the reality was like, it was very aligned. Like, this is what we wanted to do with the company. There were no other stakeholders like really on the cap table that like, needed to achieve a return. And so you could just be honest with like the team and be like, hey, okay, I don't know what we're going to do, but like, we're going to try to grow as fast as we can and try to spend as little money as possible. Like, that's what we're going to do. And when you sort of have like an institutional partner, at least this is what I've ran into, it's like you have to be really like, I don't know is not an acceptable answer, really. You just have to like, you have to make a bet and you have to be like, we are raising this money to do Y. And then that's it. And then simultaneously, in the back of your head that like the first 3 attempts at doing Y with, X resources are not going to work out. And you have to give patience and kindness, but also maintain standards. So that's been like an interesting, that's just been interesting to develop into. But for me, I like to like optimize for like fun and adventure personally. And so like having like an institutional partner like allows you just to take bigger bets and like have more fun like at work, at least for me. So it's been good. I mean, are you part of any like peer groups, like CEO groups or anything like that? Have you explored joining any of those things?
There's a group in town, actually. You should be part of it. It's it's just a group of, it's like tech CEOs that run product companies, which is kind of unique.
Interesting.
I think.
Yeah.
And they're mostly non-healthcare. So we get together once a month, I think. Yeah, once a month. Sometimes I can't go, so it ends up being like once every other month or whatever, just timing wise. But it's just a casual, like we meet at a restaurant or at someone's office and talk through stuff. Everyone's a little bit different stages. So I think that is something like I wish I had more at our stage, peer people. But it's really nice to meet in person. Like the digital groups that I've tried to like get involved with, I just haven't like fully committed. I don't know. It's hard to find the time because it's not as structured. It's more async. And that just lends itself to like, I don't know if I feel like I can call this person to ask for advice, right? I need to Slack them and figure that out. Although, one group, there's basically 2 Slack groups I am part of. One's a marketing one that I love and, I'm just part of. And then the other one is Startup Nash. If you're in that one, that's probably the one that I'm just not as committed to or into, but I love it when I do engage. Are you in that?
I think I'm in Startup Nash. Yeah, I think so. And I will follow up with you separately to get a sense of the product CEO group. That's definitely like I'm in a couple, and one of my challenges is like one of the ones I'm in. They're like great people, but they have like their businesses operate differently than ours. Like they're just the profile of the business is a little bit different. So you guys are all like basically, I mean, how extensive is the diligence process with this fund? Like, do you get a sense of that yet, or it's pretty easy?
No, it was not easy. I would say, yeah, I mean, look, it's been interesting. Like we started fundraising at the beginning of this year, and in January and February,
wow.
if you look at the venture checks that were written, it was basically nothing. It was before SVB failed, and it was just like the market was just tanking. So we kind of reevaluated then. We focused on growth. We, put our own money in to survive this year. And thankfully we did, and that was the right move, because we then had the proof points to show, right, that this is a good business to invest in. It's, there's a huge opportunity here. And we're also able to survive. There's so many startups that failed this year, primarily because not because they're bad businesses necessarily, but because they just couldn't keep going. The market, money was expensive. So yeah, what was your experience going through that process?
So we raised last year. We started raising around February. And we had been in touch because we had been operating for a while. We had been in touch with a couple of funds. And so the process to get the term sheets was quite straightforward and pretty easy, actually. And I would say the difficulty for us was we had a set of offers that were really good economic terms, but this is just my worldview. It's when you bring on an institutional partner, you are married basically, through the life of the company. And so the harder part for us was figuring out who just was aligned with our philosophical view on the world and how we want to build the company and how we think about things, and who could complement us and make us better. And so we found a fund that they had done a really good job of staying in touch with us, and we just really liked their vibe and who the partner on our deal was going to be and who the partner on the board was going to be. I was just I was very careful about signing somebody, partnering with somebody, and that's probably on me for sure. But I would say a year into it, makes me wish I'd done it sooner, for sure.
Interesting.
I don't know if I would have been capable of being responsible enough and mature enough to handle the amount of resources that you get injected into the company, truly. But I think that for me personally, just the added diligence, the thoughtfulness that happens when you have a proper board, that stuff is just not stuff that we had before. And they're actually helpful when it comes to budgeting and hey, here's how we think about this role. Here's what we've seen people pay at our portfolio companies. Cool, we need to hire this role. Here's how you got to think about this role. And here's maybe what you can get them to manage. And you're cool. I don't have to go and ask a bunch of people, get their opinion. I have a guy who's actually economically invested in the outcome of the company. Just here's our worldview. So that's huge. That's been really.
It's interesting. It was the exact opposite problem. So the term sheet process was really hard for us. I think mostly because
it's a different time.
It's a different time.
It's a different time.
But also the company that we ended up working with is my old boss from a decade ago. And so that was someone I know, right? And I think my co-founders now know well enough that our worldviews align really well. But that was an easy decision for me. He sold a company to a company that I worked for, and then he ended up being the head of product, and I reported to him a decade ago. And so I knew, known entity. He's been through this before. He's raised money before. He's sold companies before. He's been in, my seat. This is, we're, just same page. That was easy. But I do think that that's such a big problem. That's where it becomes expensive, right? If you don't make that, is your worldview the same? Are your values the same? How do you make decisions? If that isn't aligned, that's the most expensive choice.
Yeah.
Or opportunistic choice, right? It's the biggest lever, I think.
Yeah. No, totally. And like, one of the, it's funny, like one of the things that I think a lot of funds, like, I mean, I don't know. I'm sort of like, my experience with like working with an institutional fund is like one. So I might be like, like extrapolating a trend that doesn't exist. But I feel like what makes our relationship work is that like I have like a deep amount of respect for who the person on our board is. And that's because of just like the way that like they carry themselves and like the way that they help us like work through problems. And I think a lot of, and this is just my impression, but I think a lot of folks like expect to be given that respect if you're like a venture investor, just because of the nature of their work and because they've seen a lot of companies. But like so much of like your respect for somebody in a professional working capacity is like based on your relationship with them. It's not based on their track record. It's like maybe that gets you the first 2 meetings, but like for them to have influence on your decision making, you need to like actually be like, this person's awesome. And like, I want to listen to them,
Yeah. You're so on. I so jive with that. And I would say too, like we talked to, over 100 funds. And I would say 85% of them on the first meeting, I was like, no, I don't really want to work with you for that reason. I mean, I hate to say it, like at some point it becomes like, well, do you want the company to exist or not? Right. At some point, right. If you're struggling to raise, thankfully we didn't get to that point, but you're right. Like you expect there's this like weird dynamic where it comes across as we're the experts, we're the ones with the cash, we're the ones with the control. Like we control your destiny, and that's how it feels, and that doesn't feel good. That's not what I want to sign up for. So
that's the opposite of why you start a company. Like yeah,
totally. So you said you have like people come to you with problems, and you CEO them a little. How do you get to that point? Like I have fallen in love with the problems that I've solved in the past. Marketing problems, I love. The problem that we're solving for customers, I love. But like, the accounting and legal problems and, like stuff like that, I don't know. I haven't discovered the enjoyment of solving those problems. So I'm curious how you do that.
This is like easier said than done. And this only works for my psychology. So it's hard for me to like provide advice on this because every company's different. Every CEO operates differently. It's not about the problem to me. It's more so like who I get to work with to solve that thing. And so there are aspects of the business where like I really love engaging with certain people on whatever like is under their purview. And it's like a joy to be on a call with them or in a meeting and be like, all right, like, let's work through this. Like, and it's fun. Right. And so like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. There are probably some CFOs who love like doing accounting, but like it's kind of boring. But like, I love the dude who is like running that aspect of the business for us. And so it's like, I can tolerate like going through like, here's our BBAs, here's this. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I actually, I find, absent of any person, there are obviously things that I like focus areas of the business that I enjoy solving more than others. But for me, it's more about like, I'm just extroverted. Like I like dealing with people and I enjoy solving problems with people. So, does that answer your question? Like
it does. And it actually does speak to me. I think we're earlier stage than you. And so we don't have someone to do that thing. So it's sort of like a divide and conquer, right? There's just so much stuff to get done and we got to close this round to be able to go hire the people that go do the, that can be that, that can have that engaging problem solving mindset with, and we'd have that as co-founders for sure. Talk about people who have totally different functional areas of expertise, but come together to solve problems. That gives me motivation and energy and all that. But at the times when it's just like, we just got to divide and conquer to get this done, that's when I struggle, I think, to love those problems.
No, same. I mean, like, practically, I know this about myself. It's like, sometimes I love working on like a Saturday because like I know that it's like important to people, like that I unblock a certain thing. That's maybe the only time in my week that like I have to be able to do it. But if it's like a rote thing that I just like, I need to read a report. Like this report's really important to like inform my worldview about like something. I will procrastinate that to like the next weekend. Right. Because it's like there's no like actual people dimension to it. I'm not talking about it to anybody necessarily. So I try to create hooks in my life, especially with work, that like have a dimension of social accountability and some social output to motivate myself to do it and like actually enjoy doing it. I just know that about myself. Yeah. It's hard for me to do anything that's like a fundamentally like siloed alone thing. So.
Same. I find I do this habit, and my co-founders have called me out on it before, where I'll say, it'll be something that isn't urgent but is important, and I'll say, great, I'll have that to you by tomorrow. I'll have that to you by tomorrow, and we'll get off the call, and my co-founder said, "Why'd you put the ticker on it for tomorrow?"
That's true. I do that,
and I care about doing it in the time that I say I'll do it. So like I have to put that ticker on because I care for me to be that accountable person, and I care that someone else sees me as that accountable person. Which, maybe that's bad, but I care.
No, that's powerful. So like have you developed, like, it sounds like you've just carried forward your habits previous to the role, basically into the role. And like, that's why it's working. Like, this is like, even if the title is new, fundamentally the way you operate is not really that new. Does the responsibility feel different or it feels the same as before?
On the habits piece, I would say I'm trying how I managed habits before, but I feel like I had mastery of that in marketing. Like, this is the cadence, this is the, scale, this is what, this is the next decision we need to make, like, and be able to do it fast. Like, I got to the point where I mastered it and I could do it fast on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. Like, I knew the flow, if you will. With this, I do not know the flow. I feel like I'm getting like, I'm not controlling it. It's controlling me. Right. And that's really hard. So I'm trying to get out of that for sure on the habit side. How it feels from a responsibility perspective. It does feel different. I think, there's just things that we, as a founding team, if there's a struggle to decide something now, sometimes it falls to me, right? Like, okay, we are deadlocked on this. Kate decides. You're like, okay, it is just a little bit different. It's rare. It's incredibly rare. We're such a fluid team in that way where I don't feel alone in that, but I feel a deeper sense of responsibility. I don't know, that I did before, maybe. Not by much, but it's different. I also think the thing that's most different is the way that people look at you from outside, right? Like, they're like, oh my gosh, you're CEO now. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but I mean, I own the same amount of the company mostly, right? like the title changed, yes, but ultimately the responsibility of all this hasn't necessarily. So I would say it feels a little bit different to me internally, but what I notice most is that it feels different to other people a lot. And I don't fully understand that, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's just different. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you feel that? Totally. Or you've always been CEO, so you haven't had to go through that transition?
I mean, it gets more real with every like added level of commitment, measured in increments of employee or in increments of revenue or increments of capital. Like The one thing I told like one of my colleagues is like the most interesting thing about today versus like 18 months ago is like now you have people making commitments on your behalf to other people, and you have not met those. Like, I don't know every customer,
Yeah.
I don't know every developer. And like there was a time in which like I did. And so that's always like super interesting to think about. Like you're, you know, as the CEO, like if something is poorly delivered in terms of experience, like that's ultimately on
On you.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's been interesting to grapple with. And I just try not to think too hard about it because I think you can drive yourself insane if you
have you had yeah, it's interesting. Maybe I have a different perception of CEOs as well. We have a vendor who we are their customer. And we had a really crappy experience multiple times. And it was not our fault. It was basically the essence of the situation is we got shut off out of nowhere to their software platform. And I was like, what the heck is going on? I, emailed our sales rep and finally heard back, like, we're so sorry. We just made a mistake. We just shut you off for basically no reason. It's like, okay, great. And then for the next 2 quarters, we are on quarterly billing. And the first quarter, they just didn't send us a bill and then shut us off again, right? So I'm not thinking about paying it. I expect I'll see a bill and then I'll pay it. They shut us off like, hey, they're like, well, we shut you off for non-payment. I'm like, I never got a bill from you. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, you're right. We didn't send you one. I'm like, okay, like what? And then the next time they actually sent us the bill, but the link didn't work to pay it. So I lost it in my mind, right? I was late on it because I couldn't pay it. And then I didn't stay on top of it essentially. So they shut us off again. And I finally was like, they shut us off again, and they sent us a note saying that they were escalating this to their legal department because we didn't pay. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so I laid it all out and I CC'd the CEO of this company. Like, this has been our experience. And we get this veiled threat of legal action because we didn't pay a bill that we couldn't pay, through this portal that you sent us. No response. I got no response from the CEO. I was like, wow. And they're much bigger than us, but they're not a huge company. And I was like, that's shitty. Like, I am not going to be that CEO. I am going to respond to this. I'm going to try and be proactive too. Even if you don't CC me, I want to know about it. And I want to reach out and say, hey, I'm so sorry you had this experience. Because that stuff's going to happen, I don't know. Have you had to deal with that yet? And what is your principle behind it?
Yeah, I personally, I love dealing with the bad shit. Like that's I think where we get to earn our stripes. So yeah, I like it. I like many customer problems are escalated to me, and we're in the people business, we're hooking up developers and companies, and people are they're not bits, they're not consistently delivered, all the time, and so yeah, we deal with a lot of that stuff, and my psychology is well suited to handle that stuff, and I share the same opinion as you. Ultimately, it's meaningful if you care about customers and resolving an issue, and your team sees that. So I think it's really important.
Totally agree.
So you guys are raising your first round, the first institutional round. You guys have raised a round before, or
Friends and Family Angels us was the before. So now, this is our first institutional round.
Got it. Are you guys thinking about this like a seed round or like a Series A?
Seed. Yeah, I would say it's a seed still. But I don't know. It's what do you call it? Even the institutional people are I don't know, call it whatever you want to call it. It's I guess we'd call it seed because it's from a seed fund. Honestly, that's why I think about it. The institution is a seed fund. So, but they do make some big investments. So I don't know, are they a seed round or seed fund?
Okay, cool. That makes sense. And so as you think about like capital deployment, where are some areas that you guys are like really excited about investing in over the next, 2 years?
So I don't know how much you know about us, but there was a point in time where we thought we were dead in the water. We basically built a performance management system, which is like, do you do annual reviews and that sort of thing? Or do you have like systems to review performance for employees yet? I don't know. You might not be big enough yet. I don't know. Do you do that? Or do you do it in like Google Docs?
Yeah, we do it like in a janky way. We need to be better about that for sure.
So we had basically built that. And there's companies that are like, Sam Altman's brother runs a company that does that, to give you an idea of like the scale of, who we're up against. And so we thought, man, we're just not going to win here. But what we were able to do, and AI has helped us tremendously do this, and this is the forward vision of the company, is individual feedback and coaching for employees at every time they interact. So like the first example of that is you use teaming in your one-on-one meetings with your direct reports. And we do all the things that a performance management system would do. We keep track of your goals. You can create agendas. You can take down notes. You can manage all your tasks, right? It's a task manager. It's like, every operational tool you need to lead your team. But there's nothing differentiated about that, really, right? It exists. The future and we launched this in August, and it's just been a, growth chart for us with this, which has been awesome.
That's excellent.
Yeah, is we join your one-on-one with, have you ever used like Otter or Fireflies, the note takers? We built one.
Fathom, anything like that.
Fathom, yeah. We built one. So we do that for you. We take your notes for you. But we use the information we get from the meeting, right? How you're communicating with your direct report, how the direct report is communicating with you. And we merge that with that employee's performance, their DISC profile, like their, communication style, their, engagement, right? We're measuring their engagement about how they feel about working on this team for you as a manager, et cetera, et cetera. And we're able to provide immediate feedback of like, hey, when you talked about, hiring Gun.io for your devs, like that was a really good conversation with that direct report because you communicated in this way, which is how this employee prefers to hear, feedback or something like that. When you talked about Project Cup, I don't know, I'm looking at a cup, Project Cup, right? There was some tension because, you dove into the details with them and they, that can feel like micromanagement. And then the converse side of that, right, is that the employee gets the same thing. Hey, when you talked about, hiring Gun, you dove too far into the details and your manager just wanted a high level status update on it. And so it's just helping people flex to each other's style. But it's immediate, it's contextual, it's timely so that you can use that over time to build those really great relationships with the people on your team. So people,
that's sick.
The result of it has been, just truly awesome. People, I think people like you who are extroverted and they get that motivation from working with people, and teaming has been really helpful for people like that because they feel like it's a tool to do that better or to know those people even more. And then on the reverse side, right, the more introverted or maybe more just like work focused rather than people focused managers, find that this is like teaming is like a playbook for them. You know what I mean? It's like, I know how to connect. I know connecting with Teja is important, but I don't really know how to do that. And so teaming helps me to do what I know is important, but I don't know how to do. So it's been Yeah. Been great.
That's awesome.
That's you asked about deploying capital. That's what we're investing heavily in, right? Is the data we need to do that. The AI, training the AI to be able to do that. It's all that. And we're hiring a salesperson. We gotta get on that. Right now it's still me. So.
That's cool. I mean, well, I'm sure you're killing it in sales. You're probably the best performing salesperson. That's interesting. And I mean, honestly, like the way that our company works, like the feedback system, like mirrors this process. So I feel like, I mean, I will have somebody, we will take a look at teaming and hopefully be a customer.
No pressure, but like, in terms of what we're investing in, there's so much opportunity to do even more of what we're doing, right? We're in like the infancy stage of it.
No, totally. And like, maybe like when we like scale to like 100 people or something like that, like it becomes like we need more systematic performance reviews. But like now, you're meeting everybody every week, like everybody's syncing every week on something. And so you just want to be like, hey, like just do better here because like X, Y, and Z reason. Like that's it. That's the extent of the performance review,
Yeah.
Like in a year, our business fundamentally changes too much, at least in our context, and your context probably too. Definitely in your context, it sounds like where like I feel like if I'm giving like a quarterly or an annual performance eval, it's like not relevant anymore.
That's the thing. Like, we barely do them anymore. Honestly, like you can still, but like it's the maintenance of those the regular nature of having those good conversations that's the most important in businesses like ours. And honestly, even like large enterprises are like, you talk to the employees, they're like, yeah, I don't know why we do it. they're like, I don't know why you didn't tell me 11 months ago I needed to improve on this thing, right? Like that makes no sense.
No, that's exactly how I feel. Like, if like your friend is like constantly showing up late to like hang out, you're not going to be like, all right, October 1, I'm going to tell my friend. You're like, yo, dude, like, just like, can you work on this? Like, what's going on? So yeah.
Exactly right.
Okay. So as far as the seed round, you guys are like heavily investing in product and in engineering. So when you say like train an AI, like, are you guys thinking about like basically having a custom sort of language model that is going to be trained and help, orient people and inform people around the right way to communicate?
Yeah. So right now we're working with OpenAI because we just don't have the ability to do it ourselves, right? We're not enough people. But yeah, I think that's something that we need to figure out. I think there's like a crawl, walk, run on it where we're in crawl right now. Walk would probably be using multiple LLMs because they all have different ways of analyzing the communication that's happening, right? Because it's not just the AI piece of it, but it's actually being able to intake the information and understand what we're feeding it. And then the output, right? And then I think, and this is probably many years down the road, like I think there is a world in which every company is going to end up building their own LLM because it's defensible, but who knows? I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the future of that. And if you're using it to help match or pair people and companies and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm like kind of like a layman when it comes to like understanding the direction of AI. But I will give you my thoughts since you asked.
Yes, please. We're all laymen. We're all laymen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I just did an interview with this dude who is CEO of a company called Firetail, and it's a cool company. They do basically like API security. And he was actually talking about like, it's interesting. Maybe I'll have to connect you guys. He was talking about how, especially as like companies build like their LLMs, or as they're leveraging like other LLMs, like security becomes a huge issue because you're sending basically personally identifying data to a third party. And like, how do you make sure that like it's secure, it's not vulnerable, that sort of thing. And so I don't know, I'll reach out to him. And if you guys would like, I don't know if that's on the roadmap, but sounds like it is.
Okay. It totally is. We get, it's interesting. Like we're still small enough where there's basically 3 schools of thought when we get into the executive level of a deal. One is basically like, we're not going to be able to control this, so we're just going to go with it. The middle, and then the other side is like, we have a hard stance, no AI, where we will not allow employees to sign up for anything. We're not going to get into this thing until we really know what the impact is. And in the middle, it's like basically large enterprises are trying to architect deals with, ChatGPT, OpenAI, where they're getting their own version essentially of OpenAI, and they're signing their own privacy agreements that like OpenAI won't use the data that they're getting from Square, right, or Stripe or whatever to continue to train. I think that's probably the future, right? The lawyers are going to lawyer and they're going to figure out basically, until these companies can build their own LLMs, how can they safely and in the right privacy settings be able to empower their employees to move faster? Because I think it's a foregone conclusion with all of the tech companies anyway that they're going to get left in the dust if they don't use it and build it. So I don't know.
No, I agree. We have a policy now that's like, you cannot feed proprietary information into OpenAI.
Yeah.
That's a company stance. And there's a couple of reasons. I think the primary reason is like, we have a government contract. And so like, there's certain regs that you have to follow around information security and things like that. I'm in the camp though that like we're comfortable sending it to like Bard or Azure, like building our own relevant model that's trained to our business, right? Because I think building your own LLM is like prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
It's like you need like a ton of money and a ton of engineers who are really smart to do it. Right. That's OpenAI's business. So you need to have like a separate business to do that. So I think that's a good
exactly. I totally agree. Totally agree.
I think over the long term, just like what happened like with being able to host on the cloud versus like having your own racks, I think that's like the direction that AI will go. You could probably lease, the service from these big software companies whose main business is like hosting. Saves me a ton of time. For sure.
So much time. Yeah. And what's possible is, it still blows my mind sometimes, like on big things, right? Like for us, it's, how do we break down communication to make it more effective, right? That's super complex between every individual person on the planet, down to like, I bought new sheets last week. I fed it my requirements, and I got back the best, like most inexpensive sheets, and I slept on them this week, and I freaking love them. I'm like, this is great. Like, well, I didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
do you like Egyptian cotton or tencel or linen? Give me your set. Like, I'm sure you've thought about this and you've researched this. I actually have strong opinion on bed sheets, so I'm just curious what.
Yes. So my requirements are I like crispy, cool sheets, right, that are smooth. And I got back percale weave of Egyptian cotton is the best for that.
Okay. Nice.
So percale weave, I've learned, has a single thread over under, like is how they're made, and that's how they get the really smooth, crisp, clean feel. What are your thoughts? What's your preference?
My favorite are eucalyptus based tencel
I've
sheets.
never even heard of that.
Yeah, super soft, like amazingly soft. And then in the summer, I like linen, obviously. Um, and I, and I think the linen might be like if you want to optimize for comfort and health. Typically, I've found that like linen sheets have like the least. Like I'm such a weird. Like I don't like to have anything like processed or like
Yeah.
you know anything that's like bad for me. Although obviously I still like to party and like have the
Yeah.
occasional alcoholic drink.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm like grappling with that, but like I like those, and it's cool that you leveraged basically AI to help you make that decision. Because I would spend like 30 minutes trying to figure out like which ones to buy, and you could just feed it into
Yeah.
ChatGPT to figure out that
Yeah.
for you. Yeah,
That's so interesting. I've not thought, you spend so much time with sheets on your skin. It's almost like worse than clothing, or as important as clothing, right? Like,
as
I've never
important.
thought about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I read some
super
article.
important.
There's like some chemical they use to process leggings, right? I don't know if I think Lululemon uses it, but it's like been linked to ovarian cancer, and like you're like, wow, that's really bad. So
100%. No, you're putting like basically like a petroleum based thing near your like on your skin, like near the
reproductive
most vital
organs.
part.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I definitely am super intent on like not doing that to the
Yeah.
extent possible.
Yeah. I've never tried linen sheets though, but I can see. I guess I've always thought, do they feel scratchy?
They okay. You gotta wash them like 10 times, and
Okay.
then they don't feel scratchy anymore. But real good ones, like high quality ones, will like feel scratchy for the first, you know. Let's say you keep your sheets on for 2 weeks. It'll take you about half a year to get it like
Damn.
soft.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you change every 2 weeks, but like you know, it. But it's worth it because in
Yeah.
a half a year you have like these fully natural, awesome sheets. And like I'm big on sleep. Like I want to sleep well because you got to use your brain like a lot during the
Yeah.
day. So
Yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah. That's something. I don't know if it's age or stress from being an entrepreneur,
it's
but
both. It's
yeah,
both.
probably.
Yeah.
I've had a really hard time sleeping, and it's this like vicious cycle, which I don't know if you feel this, but like, I used to be pretty good about working out. Physical fitness helps my brain focus like a lot. If I don't get physical fitness, I'm just not as smart. Like that's the, it's just not going to be a good day. But I haven't necessarily felt that with sleep in the way I have my whole life with physical fitness. But I broke my foot this summer.
Oh, geez.
Like you can't do anything with a broken foot. It's like I was doing yoga, no yoga. You walking, like no. You were running, no. You can't do that, right? So it's been very hard to get that, and so it now affects my sleep too, right? If I don't get exercise, then my sleep is crappy, right? So it's like this vicious cycle of I have to work out so that I can be a productive human, and then I have to sleep to be a productive human, but I can't sleep if I don't work out. It's that sucks.
Yeah, it's a thing. Do you feel like working out like helps you deal like with and process like work related items or
so much? I used to be a runner, and that was really good for me to create focus, just straight up focusing on tasks with my brain. But now, and especially as becoming an entrepreneur, yoga has been it's almost like running doesn't work anymore because my mind doesn't focus on running. It focuses on the other things, and that's not good.
yeah.
So yoga helps me because like a teacher is there saying like, bring it back to this moment. don't let the other things seep into your mind. Like it's mindful as well as physical fitness. And that's huge. And it's still painful to do. I broke it in August, and it was, I was cleared for working out again, doing yoga again 8 weeks later, and I still am struggling. It's still painful. I'm like, God, I really miss it.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Do you So okay, do you have the Peloton app?
Yes.
Have you tried like the Pilates or the yoga on the Peloton app?
No, only the bike stuff.
Okay, they have like some really cool like 10 5-minute like stretching, yoga, Pilates, also weights.
Okay.
And like dance cardio as well. So like what I normally do is like I have like a gym in my house. So if I'm working from home, like it's pretty convenient to be able to lift in the morning, during the work week. And then Saturdays and Sundays, I'll like go to a proper gym to train. I also like training jujitsu, but I recently tore my ACL, so I can't do that for a while. So similar to you, that's a thing where, no, that's okay. It happens. It's part of the game. And so, I feel like, with jujitsu, I can take my mind off of work, and like you're forced to, because like you're physically grappling with another human being, and like you can't really think about anything else except that. Because like they're literally trying to like choke you, so you're just like, okay, like I'm focused here. But to replace that, I have found like if I can get like an hour for lunch or something like that, I can eat in like 30 minutes and like maybe spend the first 30 like doing like a Pilates class or like a yoga class. That's like pretty convenient. And like also, if I go to like a yoga class, it's like a big commitment. It's 30 minutes there. It's an hour there. It's 30 minutes back. It's shower. It's 2-3 hours out of your day,
Yeah.
But if you do it at home, like after work or in the morning, like it's pretty solid. So
I got to try that. I live on top of a Core Power, so I just have to walk downstairs.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. It's still a big commitment, even like, because you have to like change your clothes and get your water and get your mat and like go, I mean, I can do it in like 10 minutes, but then you're there for an hour and then and then shower, and you're right. It's a lot. I need to. I gotta use the Peloton app for more than just bike. So you've inspired me.
No, it's really cool. It'll like, because like I love weightlifting, but sometimes like that's not. I don't know. This is like you can really only do that like once per day. But if you need to like process an issue, and it's not helpful to sit in front of a computer to process it, like I like to do something like that for like 10 minutes, and usually that really helps. So I'm big into like trying to be physically, like I feel like the better your physical health is, the better that you show up at work generally.
Yeah, definitely.
So
it's mental for me. My mental health is so much better when my physical health is, on point.
Is dialed in, eating right, sleeping well. Yeah, totally. On the concept of sleep, it's interesting. This would happen when we would go into an office every day. I would get so stimulated from being around my colleagues that I would not do any work around them. I would just like spend time talking to them and like solving problems with them. And I like have this stacked to-do list of like things that only I can look at and do, because like they're like emails to me that have downstream to-dos, and like I can't offload them to somebody else because like I need to do them. And so I would just get home, sign another coffee, get it done. And then by the time we finish, it's like midnight or 11, and you're just laying in bed and you're just like, okay, I need to not do that the next day. And then you do it again the next day. So yeah. It's been a little bit easier to like be more disciplined, because now I can like segment like in office time or meeting time with people differently, since like we're a remote first company.
How do you get that, or how have you transitioned to get that like stimulation that you do need, right? Or connecting with humans remotely? How have you figured out what the right mix is for you.
To the extent possible, I like seeing people in person. But, and so I try to meet regularly with people like in real life that are like local to Nashville, like grab a beer with them or maybe grab some lunch. And then we try to get the leadership team together every quarter because everybody's remote. We do our quarterly board meetings where like, our investors fly in. So it's pretty healthy because those meetings, like we do a lot together. We're planning, we're talking, we're hanging out, we're going to dinner, hanging out afterwards. And so that feels right to me. And then I'm also part of like a number of different like peer groups that meet monthly.
Yeah.
And so that's actually been super helpful. And then like also, I go to the gym every week or I go train jiu-jitsu, quite often. So I can get that stimulation in different contexts in different ways. For me personally, I'm more productive from an output standpoint, not going into the office every day, because if I go into the office every day, I'm not getting done the things that I need to get done generally.
Yeah. Same.
So
Same.
And it's not the same for everybody maybe, but it sounds like it's the same for you.
Yeah, totally.
Where can people we've done an hour already, and I don't know if we got a chance to dive in too much into the company, but I think you did a great job at future casting and telling the world like why people should sign up to teaming. So where can people find teaming on the interweb, and where can people find you?
Good question. Teaming is teaming.com. Though we are rebranding, so it will.
Okay.
We'll forward it for sure, but we'll have a new name at some point. But go to teaming.com anyway, whenever you're listening to this, because it'll be there. And for me on LinkedIn, it's Kate O'Neill. I think my slug is O'Neill Kate on LinkedIn, and that's been a really incredible tool for me. I don't know how active you are on LinkedIn, but we get most of our sales leads that way. But for me personally, it's been, quite a great way to build a community and make connection. And like anything with a community, you kind of have to contribute, right? So I try to post once a day about something that's, relevant to me or what I know is relevant to the folks that I'm connected to. That's relevant to teaming and the problems that we help people solve. It's not salesy. I guess occasionally it's like, yeah, we got this new feature, but like really problem solving with your customers and your prospects on LinkedIn has been such a great avenue and channel for us to be able to, get to know the folks that we're serving.
That's awesome.
So that's where you can find us. Sorry.
That's cool. No,
yeah.
O'Neill Kate with one L and O'Neill.
Yes, O'Neil. I'll tell you the story of why O'Neill is spelled so many different ways at some point.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Founder to Founder podcast powered by Gun.io's Frontier Network. We release a new episode every Thursday morning, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you stream your music. Please leave us a review and share with your friends. You can follow us online at The Frontier Pod or drop us a line at team@gun.io to get in touch about hiring world-class tech talent.